Okay, so imagine your deepest beliefs are being attacked, right? Your first instinct is probably to argue, to fight back. But what if the strongest possible response wasn't an argument at all? We're going to dive into this ancient story where a really nasty takedown is met with, well, not a comeback, but an incredible display of pure, structured knowledge. It's fascinating. And this is what it all boils down to. This is the line drawn in the sand by a rival group. It's so blunt, so aggressive, and there's just no room for discussion. It's basically them saying, we're right, and everything you're doing is fundamentally wrong. And that really brings us to the big question here, not just for this old text, but for, all of us. When everything you stand for is being challenged in public, what's your go-to move? Do you debate? Do you get defensive? Or is there another way? This sutra offers a really, really unexpected answer. So the story kicks off in this really peaceful way. The Buddha and his community of monks, they arrive in a city called Malika. A really devout guy who actually has the same name has just built this beautiful new hall, and he invites them to be the very first people to stay there. So it's this scene of total respect and calm. So after teaching for a bit, the Buddha lies down to rest. And right then, in that quiet moment, the whole scene just gets shattered. Nearby, there's this group of rival ascetics. They're called the Niganthas. And when they see the Buddha's disciples, they just launch into this relentless verbal attack. It's a full-on slander campaign. And these aren't just vague insults either. They get really specific. And their accusations are designed to be devastating. They're saying the teachings don't make sense, that the disciples are still greedy, that they're blind to the real path. And this is the real gut punch, that their teacher isn't even truly enlightened. This isn't a debate. They're trying to completely discredit the whole enterprise. So enter the Buddha's chief disciple, a monk named Śāriputra, who was known for being incredibly wise. He overhears all of this. But his first thought is, hey, the Buddha's resting, I'm not going to bother him. So he decides he's going to handle this himself. And the way he does it is what makes this story so amazing. And this is where the story just takes this incredible turn. Śāriputra doesn't even look at the Niganthas. He doesn't argue, he doesn't defend, he doesn't counterattack, nothing. Instead, he turns to his fellow monks and just starts to teach. He calmly and methodically lays out the entire framework of the Buddhist teachings. His method here is it's brilliant. He structures the entire sermon numerically. He starts with concepts that come in ones, then twos, then threes, and he goes all the way up to 10. You have to remember, in an oral tradition without books, this wasn't just clever. It was a powerful way to organize and remember huge amounts of information. It's a systematic, overwhelming display of just how coherent the Dharma is. So he just moves through the numbers, one by one, building this kind of fortress of logic. For instance, when he gets to the number 3, he starts listing all these core concepts that are grouped that way. It's not just a random list. It's a demonstration of how everything in the system is interconnected. And look at how practical this is. Remember the Niganthas accused them of being driven by greed? Well, Śāriputra responds by laying out the 3 poisons, greed, hatred, and delusion, and then presenting their direct opposites, their antidotes. He's not just talking, he's giving them a clear map from a state of suffering to a state of freedom. And he just keeps going. He doesn't stop. He systematically moves on to the next category, all the teachings that come in sets of 4. You can almost feel the intellectual weight of this thing building, layer upon layer. He's creating this unshakable foundation. This is a great example of the ethical side of things. He contrasts the 4 kinds of bad speech, lying, gossip, harsh words, and just idle chatter, with their wholesome counterparts. See, it's not some abstract theory. It's a concrete guide for how you should actually talk to people. He's demonstrating the teaching by showing how logical and ethical it is. So as he's building this incredible case, Śāriputra moves from these foundational ideas into the absolute core tenets of the path, the stuff that's right at the heart of the Buddha's discovery. So next up, he presents the 4 noble truths, which are like the absolute bedrock of the entire teaching. It's such a powerful, logical framework. First, you just have to acknowledge that suffering is a thing. Second, you figure out what causes it. Third, you realize that you can actually end that cause. And fourth, you follow the path to do it. It's basically a diagnosis and a prescription for the human condition. And as the 4 noble truths are the diagnosis, well, the Eightfold Path is the prescription. This is the how-to guide. Śāriputra details all 8 of these interconnected practices, from right view all the way to right concentration. And he's showing that this isn't just some abstract thing to believe in. It's a practical, step-by-step training for how to live an enlightened life. So after Śāriputra has laid out the entire teaching systematically from 1 to 10 in this incredible sermon, the Buddha gets up from his rest. He's heard everything, and now we get the climax of the story. And this is just, wow, this is the ultimate moment of validation. The Buddha doesn't just say, hey, good job. He says, excellent, excellent, and then confirms that everything Śāriputra just taught is a perfect and complete expression of his own teachings. He basically says, your words are my words. And then he does something that's incredibly significant. He gives Śāriputra's sermon a name, the Great Assembly of Dharmas. By doing this, he's not just approving it, he's basically making it canon. He's stamping it as an official teaching to be saved and passed down for everyone in the future. And this brings us to the ultimate irony, right? The Niganthas had accused the disciples of not having a lion's roar, a powerful declaration of truth. But what Śāriputra did completely redefined the term. A true lion's roar isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's the quiet, undeniable power of coherent knowledge. The best defense wasn't a sword, it was a map. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In our own lives, when we're faced with criticism or conflict, we're so often tempted to just argue, to go point for point. But this story suggests there's another way. Maybe sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just quietly demonstrate the integrity, the structure, and the value of what you know. So when is the best argument not an argument at all?